Hi guys, thought I would do a walkthrough in the garden with you today. The last time we did a video was June 4th and a lot of stuff has grown and gotten big since then, so let's take a look. This is where I start the tours. It's a concrete area which now has my son's swimming pool. Just fits. It's nice and refreshing. Sometimes I get in there after a hot sweaty day. So back here behind the house, I have a lot of greens, cucumbers, and sunflowers. So let's take a look. This pot has morning glories, which right now you can see are blooming really nice. I never have to plant these. Planted them once, they reseed themselves every year now, and it's really nice looking out this window at the morning glories. This bed here, I had someone ask what this plastic bed, where I got it. It's a black plastic bed. This is actually repurposed. We used to have a sleep number bed, and we got a different bed a few years ago, and this was actually the frame. So instead of throwing it away, I thought it looked like a perfect raised bed, and it has worked out really well. So we have tatsoi in here, which is like it's like a bok choy, a green that you can put in stir fries. I have a couple lettuce plants that I'm letting bolt. I'm going to collect the seeds when it's time so that I can have some seeds for free next year. We have some kale. Back here is a plant that I planted once a couple years ago and forgot about. It's actually sorrel, and it seeds like crazy, and it's becoming sort of a weed, but that's okay. It's easy to pull, and the leaves are kind of like a lemony spinach. And there's a lot of things you can do with sorrel if you just Google it. You can put it in soups and smoothies, all kinds of stuff. So I'm gonna just leave that there as long as it wants to grow there. This section has cilantro and arugula and then some lettuce in the back. And we have here on this trellis, one of my favorite things to grow now are sanditas, which are a tiny little watermelon, or not watermelon, it looks like a watermelon. It's a cucumber, and it kind of tastes lemony. Kids love them. People are always asking what they are. I've grown them for a few years now. This plant will go crazy and just have hundreds of these tiny cucumbers. It's not quite, they're not quite fully grown yet, and they haven't taken off yet, but they will. There's also some nasturtium in there that's been growing really well. I have some long green cucumbers on this side, and they are climbing well on the fence. Obviously some of the cucumbers grow on the other side, so fortunately I know my neighbors well, and they have no problem with me coming into their yard to harvest my stuff. And I always tell them, hey, if you're hungry, grab a cucumber or whatever's growing on your side. Here is the lasagna bed that I started this year by just piling on cardboard and compost and straw. And you can see I have chard growing on the far row. The next row is a bunch of zinnias and marigolds, which are not growing big and well, only because this is a very shady spot. The shed shades it most of the day. A row of kale, and then the sun does hit this row enough to get these sunflowers that are growing. I just have a row of sunflowers and marigolds, all different kinds of sunflowers, and you can really tell where the sun hits most because that's where the sunflowers are taller. So there's definitely patches of sun that I need to figure out and plan around throughout the day. I need to make a sun map. Along the fence here, there are more sunflowers. All of these I transplanted. In my last video, okay, let me pick up where I was. My phone keeps kicking me off because I don't have much memory space, so I might have to make this in segments and put them together. Okay, so this is a row of sunflowers that came from a transplant. I had to start them on the patio. I was having too many problems with cutworms. and it worked out really well just to transplant them here. And there's just enough sun each day that they are getting pretty big. Along the row here, I have a lot of zinnias that are starting to pop out, a few sunflowers. It's kind of like a mishmash of stuff that just makes it look pretty, along with some volunteer dragon tongue beans. All along the fence here, just lots of pretty flowers and stuff. Okay, it's going to kick me off. Let me go to another video. Around the corner, the compost is starting to rebuild. I keep putting all of our compost back here and just keeping it covered with straw. This mullein plant has gotten really tall. It's about as tall as me. And then this is my most exciting change this year, is I have this whole fence row that used to be a bunch of shrubs that we had to dig out, and my 17-year-old spent a lot of time and effort digging out all the stumps from the shrubs that we cut down, and I had a vision that I was going to make a Three Sisters garden, something I've dreamed about for a long time, and it really has turned out really well. Each section here I have done a squash, and then corn and beans, and then squash, corn and beans, squash, corn and beans, and so on down the row. Different types of squash in each section. This section has pumpkin. You can see it behind the chain link. There's one growing. There are squashes growing just everywhere. I've harvested green beans already, and purple beans, and dragon tongue beans. The corn is tasseling, and there are ears forming, and I have been doing some hand pollinating to try to make sure we get some good ears of corn. The pollinators are really loving the tassels. There's a little pollinator that keeps coming every day, and I don't know what type of bee it is, but I did post a picture on the page a couple days ago. So this section, I believe, is the butternut squash. I can see one in here. Okay, and there's just tons. Also in there, behind there, you can see a volunteer cucumber. I really have no idea how that volunteer cucumber started growing, but I'll take it. Some sunflowers. I don't have any sunflowers blooming yet, but they'll look really great when they do. I've been getting a lot of yellow squash and green zucchini. Now I can see some squash bugs on this yellow squash right now. I have been taking leaves that have the squash bug eggs. I've just been pulling them off and putting them in a bucket of water to try to get rid of some of these squash bugs, but there's still some in there. This is the biggest patch of corn. I mean, this is way taller than me. It's just really awesome to see. Each patch of corn I planted in a 4x4 grid to try to make sure that they would pollinate. So we'll see if we get some good corn from these ears that are popping out. This plant has been producing, there are actually 3 plants here, 2 green zucchini and a yellow squash, and I have been just harvesting pounds and pounds of squash. Here's another one that just like appeared overnight. Definitely wasn't there. I didn't see it last night when I was harvesting, but we're getting tons of zucchini and squash out of there. And 3 beds over here. This one's a really fun bed right now. It has a lot of stuff going on. A nasturtium, a sunflower, which I had to transplant because, like I said, I was having issues with the sunflowers. There are a lot of these growing, which are technically weed. It's technically a weed. It's a pigweed or a purslane. And it really took over a lot in this garden. I've been pulling the purslane from most of the beds, but I just wanted to leave it here because it is edible and you can use it in recipes. And I thought, well, let's just let it go. I don't really think it's hurting anything right now. We have some melon. This is Tigger melon. We have just a teeny tiny one starting here. So we have a Tigger melon, and we also have, actually this might be the watermelon. I think this is the watermelon plant. They're kind of growing together. The Tigger melon has a little bit different leaf, but it is also starting to blossom, and hopefully we'll get a lot of melons. The zinnias look beautiful. I just love zinnias. That's something new I just started last year, and I love them so much. The pollinators love them, and they just look so pretty. We have the tomatillas here. Have a lot of them. I like how they look like these pretty lanterns. There's a bunch of them growing. I can't really remember when they'll be ready. It's been a couple years since I've grown tomatillas. More zinnia. A lot of tomatoes, which I've been harvesting tomatoes every day. I think there are some red ones somewhere. I see some red peeking through. Over here I wanted to show you, these marigolds are new to me. And they're really pretty. Gosh, I can't remember what they're called, but I'll have to put it in the comments. It's a marigold that's just a really pretty white marigold, not your typical orange. And here we have our kohlrabi. We have some that are getting close to harvest. And in the back is the mustard, which is all going to seed right now. But at the bottom, what I'm trying to get at, this is the first time I've grown this, and it's called bald head mustard. And it grows a bulb underneath the ground that should get pretty big, and you can use it in stir fries or pickling it. So I'm just experimenting with this plant this year. It sounded interesting to me. Okay, let's go to the side garden here. Let's see what else we've got. Alright, go through the gate. We have a couple jalapeno plants. They're doing really well. This eggplant, the plant itself doesn't look that great, but I noticed last night that there are a couple of eggplants. There's one. There's another one behind here. And so even though the plant looks kind of small and sickly and like it just can't get enough water where it's at, it's actually producing. More jalapenos. The green onions are starting to look really nice. And some sunflowers. Here are the lipstick peppers, which are kind of like a snack pepper, but they're actually getting a lot bigger this year than they were last year. So they're almost becoming the size of like a full-size pepper, but not quite. This one's gonna make a tasty snack later. So I really love these lipstick peppers. They do really well. The pests seem to leave them alone, and they produce a lot of peppers. Okay, here are a bunch of tomatoes. There are 6 different types in here. I've only harvested one tomato. It looks like quite a jungle when I'm looking at it through this camera, and it is a jungle. But there are 6 varieties. Now the plant on the end is a Paul Robeson, and the plant appears to have died. I'm not really sure what happened to it. There's one more Paul Robeson tomato. Oh, there's another one down at the bottom. I did harvest one of the tomatoes from this plant. I don't think it's going to be producing anymore, but that's really the only tomato plant that looks super unhealthy. This tomato plant is growing in a 5-gallon bucket. I call it an earth bucket. My other earth bucket has a nice big sunflower. It's going to get really tall. It's going to look awesome. And some teddy bear sunflowers down here. Okay, so this jungle, there are a lot of tomatoes in there. They just aren't quite ready yet. It's going to be nice getting all of those to harvest. As we walk through, there's just a lot of random pots with flowers. I like doing that. The herb garden is really nice. We have been using the herbs. Been using basil. There, underneath the basil there is thyme and rosemary. I didn't expect the basil to get so huge, and so it wasn't the best place to put the thyme and the rosemary, but that's okay. Now this bed has become kind of wild. Everything you see here is volunteer. So I was talking about sanditas on the back of the house, which are those watermelon shaped little mini cucumbers. Well, I planted them in this bed last year and just let them go. You know, a lot of them fell to the ground, and obviously it likes to reseed itself really well, because not only is it in that bed, it's growing in the stones all along here. and it's become kind of a weed, but it's a beautiful weed and we'll leave it. There's a volunteer marigold. And this bed has 4 tomato plants, also becoming much like a jungle, way taller than me. And there are so many tomatoes I'm waiting on to ripen. There's black cherries, there's black icicle in there, one of my favorite types. And then we have chocolate pear, a lot of good varieties in there. Another volunteer plant, which was a surprise, are these zinnias. They just started growing in the stones. I didn't have to do anything. I love volunteer plants. They just make me so happy. And 2 more pots at the end with these awesome marigolds, which I need to find out the name of those. I can't remember. And 2 more tomato plants, which I can see there are a bunch that I can actually harvest today. So the garden's really taken off. Haven't been harvesting a ton of things except for squash and tomato, but here in the next few weeks things are really going to start taking off, and it's going to be hard to keep up with all the harvest. So happy growing to you. I hope that your gardens are taking off as well. Post any pictures you want in the comments. I would love to see what your gardens look like. All right, till next time.